All stand, please. All persons having anything to do with this sitting of the Supreme Court of Tasmania, draw nigh and give your attendance. Please be seated.
Yes,
Alan Michael Prestage and others against Melissa Jane Barrett.
Mr. Armstrong.
Good morning, Your Honour. The matter is continuing. Can I deal with a couple of administrative matters before we resume with Mr. Butler, Your Honour?
Yes.
Firstly, I've just had a discussion with my learned friend, Mr. Reid, regarding the process of tendering documents. Firstly, in relation to the documents that have been tendered so far and should be on the exhibit list, Mr. Reid and I have been in discussions and will continue to liaise with Your Honour's associate about making sure that the existing exhibit list is correct. Given the relatively confined number of documents that are being tendered or expected to be tendered, however, Mr. Reid and I have agreed, if it's convenient to Your Honour, that we might revert to the traditional system of formally mentioning that we tender each document that we wish to tender, rather than the more implicit way that I'd suggested that we do it last week. If that's convenient to Your Honour, that's the way we'll proceed from this point on.
Yeah, I don't mind either way, but certainly that draws my associate's attention to it and makes sure that she doesn't miss something simply because a document's called up.
Thank you.
Yes, it was my suggestion, stemming from my anxiety about the system, so I'm very pleased it's changed.
Yes, thank you.
Secondly, Your Honour, just in terms of the order of proceedings today, of course we'll resume with Mr. Butler in a moment.
Yep.
Then the plaintiffs proposed to call two witnesses who were previously foreshadowed as being called by the defendants, that is Mr. Christopher Lawrence and Mr. Darren Lawrence. Your Honour will recall that they owned the properties at either side of the end of Inala Road.
Inala Road, yeah.
So we will be calling them after Mr. Butler, and we don't expect that's going to change the overall timing of the trial, because we're just bringing forward two of the witnesses who we otherwise expected would be called. And the last matter, Your Honour, is really just an issue of my personal convenience. Your Honour's associate indicated to the parties on Friday, I think it was, that Your Honour doesn't propose to sit. I think it was either this Friday or next Friday.
The 14th, I think.
14th,
I've got
next
some
Friday.
matters that have crept into a criminal list.
Yes, thank you, Your Honour. Could I just foreshadow, Your Honour, that on the 12th of May, I might seek to be excused from this proceeding for the day. I need to be in, well, if it is at all possible, I will try and complete my involvement in another matter that's running in Sydney, and it's the reply submissions, and I've been asked to make myself available if I can, but may I say that is only if it's otherwise convenient to Your Honour and to the running of this case.
Yes, thank you. I don't see any difficulty with that. Mr. Cox can thank you here.
Yes, thank you, Your Honour. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm reminded as well, Your Honour, that in addition to the two Lawrence witnesses, we'll also be calling Mr. Adam Halls, who is, he is in fact a police officer, but relevantly he's one of the TFS members who attended in the immediate first moments after the fire started and attended at Inala Road.
Yes,
So,
okay, thank you.
so if Your Honour cares to recall Mr. Butler, please.
Thank you. Yes, come on through, Mr. Butler.
Just remain standing.
Yep.
Yes. Do you swear by Almighty God that the evidence you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please say I swear.
I swear.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Reid.
Thank you. Mr. Butler, did you have your telephone with you on the day that you went to the fire?
I did.
And that had a camera?
I did have, and I didn't take any photos.
Thank you. Right. And you didn't make any notes?
I believe my son might have some photos.
Yeah, sorry, your son may have some photos, but did you make any notes?
No.
No, thank you. And you were interviewed by the police for the purpose of making a statutory declaration at 7 Mile Beach. Do you remember that?
Most of it, I would reckon, yes.
Yeah, and it was about a week after.
Yep, something like that.
If I put specifically, I don't expect you to remember this, but it was just before lunch.
Ooh, yeah, I'll go with that.
All right,
Thanks.
okay, but about a week
Yeah.
after. And you made a statutory declaration.
Yes.
And you were careful to be sure that everything contained in it that was important, that everything that was important was in there.
Yes, certainly tried that, yeah. Yes.
Could the statutory declaration be brought up, please? I'm sorry not to have a number, Mr. Tempone. Document 31. Document 31.
WTS.001.001.0032.
Thank you. Now, you'll see that on the screen in front of you, hopefully. Clean the glasses.
Yeah.
Away we go.
Thank you.
Mr. Tempone will just scroll through that. If he's going too quickly or too slowly, please tell him, just to give you the opportunity to read it.
Thank you.
And you're content that that's correct as you now remember it?
I'd say mostly, yeah. Most of it, maybe all of it. Yeah.
Most of it, maybe all of it.
Yeah, most
Is there
of
anything
it.
in there you're uncomfortable with?
There was one up there that said farmer. It's actually a farrier.
Oh, I see. Thank you. Anything else?
I don't think so.
No, I tend to that. Now, you appear to me to have what I'd call an orange beard at the moment. Did you have a red beard at the time?
Yeah, possibly, yes.
Right. Well, Mel Barrett described you as the lovely man with the red beard. Would that be you, would it?
If ass makes wives. Okay, yes.
Okay. Could document 59 be brought up, please? And 0014, Mr. Tempone, if you could move that to 1:22, 1 minute 22. Just like you to listen to this, Mr. Butler, and see whether or not what Mel Barrett says about the discussions you had with the lovely man with the red beard prompts your memory as to what occurred.
Thank you.
I think this might be one of the corrupted files again.
Yes.
Mr. Ioannidis will provide his...
Mr. Tempone's
USB.
got his own USB.
Oh, has it? Thank you, Ron.
At that pile.
122.
What was it, 122?
122.
It, even on the day of the fires, and the 7 Mile Beach fiery guy was here, the lovely man with the red beard and that. He even said there's no ember, like it wasn't even red, wasn't glowing, and because of the fire come back around here, this was just smoking a little bit, but yeah,
Okay,
nothing.
that's fine.
And then
you.
you told me about.
Do you recall that you did say to Mel Barrett that it wasn't red and it wasn't glowing?
No, I did not say that.
You don't remember it?
I didn't say that.
Right. Okay. Now, the fire in the gully that you told us about, and you pointed on a photograph to its position, you didn't walk down towards that, did you?
No.
You didn't go past the big log?
No.
You had no need to go
No
down.
need to.
Right. Now, in your statutory declaration, you make no mention of the area past or to the south of the big log, apart, leaving aside the bit about the fire back in the gully,
Yeah.
leaving that aside. You make no mention about that?
Objection, Howard. I'm not sure that the proposition, the predicate for that question is correct.
You were with Mr. McManus?
Robert, yes.
Yes. When you arrived, I want to ask if this will refresh your memory. This is what he says. He could see a female and a male and 2 male children. Do you remember seeing those?
He may, but I didn't.
You didn't, right? And the female was using buckets of water and a rake at the southern part of the house. The male was also helping along with the children. I think they were using buckets of water from the pool at the back of the house.
I think I'm led to believe Adrian Cotton knows all about that. I don't know anything about that.
Right. Okay. Now, could document 108 please be displayed? Page 0015. And if we could scroll down, please. Protecting the scene. Now, this document is part of the training module that you did, and you'll see what that training module suggested ought to be done in relation to protecting the scene. You did none of that. That's correct, isn't it?
That's correct, yeah.
Yes, if it please.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Reid. Mr. Armstrong.
No re-examination, Your Honour. Can Mr. Butler be excused?
All right, thanks very much, Mr. Butler, for coming back. You're free to go. Of course, you're free to stay and watch if you want to.
Thank you, Your Honour.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honour, the next witness for the plaintiffs is Mr. Darren Lawrence.
Is it double R-E?
Bear with me one moment. It's D-A-R-R-E-N.
Yes.
And Lawrence is with an A-W.
Yep. And is which address at Dunalley Road? Just remind me, is Mr.
He's at 112 Inala Road, Your Honour.
The bottom one. The bottom property.
The property to the west of the top of Inala Road.
Right, the second one we went to on the view.
Yes, perhaps before we get into Mr. Lawrence, perhaps Your Honour, could the court operator please bring up Court Book Document 138. Your Honour, what we've done here is take two of the figures from Mr. Marsden Smedley's report. Your Honour will see that the map itself is, the aerial photograph with the overlaid lines to indicate the fire and the locations of various properties is one that Your Honour has seen before. But just for convenience and to fit everything on one page, we've also interposed in the top white box the Table 1 from Mr. Marsden Smedley's report, which appears at Court Book 126, and that table appears on Bates number page 0647, and the photograph, the table is on page 0646, and the photograph is from table 0647. So we've just put them together to make it a little bit more convenient. And if it's convenient to Your Honour, I'll tender that now, and I'll probably take Mr. Lawrence to it because it's a useful way of getting bearings. So Your Honour will recall that...
Is one of the stars covering the dam, or is that a house?
Between numbers 9 and 6, Your Honour. No, there's no dam immediately next to the house.
That's just a structure that's partly obscured by the stars. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
So Mr. Darren Lawrence, as I said, is slightly to the west of the end, or as the western property, or I think as Your Honour might describe it, the top property, at 112. And Mr. Christopher Lawrence, his father, is indicated by number 7 on the map, and that's 110 in Inala Road.
Yeah, thank you. All right, we can call Mr. Lawrence, thanks. We just waited to bring him in when you introduced the map, that was all.
All right, thank you, Your Honour. apologise, Your Honour, he was outside a moment ago.
It's just come through this way, Mr. Lawrence, towards me, and there's the witness box over there.
Just remain standing so I can swear you in. Will you take an oath or choose to make an affirmation?
Take note, thank you.
Do you swear by Almighty God that the evidence you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please say, I swear.
I swear.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Lawrence. Make yourself comfortable there. Mr. Armstrong.
Thank you, Your Honour. Now, Mr. Lawrence, could you please state your full name for the court
Darren John Lawrence,
and your address?
112 Inala Road, Fawcett.
And what is your occupation?
I'm a production manager.
Now, could you firstly please tell His Honour how long you've lived at any address along Inala Road in Fawcett?
20 years at 112 and in and out for 10 years at 110.
Right, and 110 is owned by your parents, is that correct? Right, thank you. And what is your occupation, Mr. Lawrence?
Sorry?
What is your occupation?
Production manager.
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. It's Monday morning. Now, Mr. Lawrence, could I ask you firstly, please, to turn your mind to October 2012. There was a fire in the area of Inala Road in October 2012, is that correct?
Correct.
Could you tell His Honour what was your understanding as to how that fire started?
It was a hazard reduction burn on the evening before or the day before. I saw it. I'd been out all day. I came home and I could see a nice glow on the hill up on to the left as I came onto my property. And I thought it was interesting to have a fire with the forecast of the next day with very high winds. So I was hoping they were going to be able to keep it within their boundaries.
All right, thank you. Could I ask the court operator please to bring up court book document 138? And this will be displayed on the screen for you, Mr. Lawrence. And if we could enlarge the top quadrant of the document and go up to the top. Now, Mr. Lawrence, your property at 112 Inala Road is indicated by the number 6 and a black star that you see where the cursor is indicating. Do you see that?
Correct.
And then your parents' property at number 7, that is 110 Inala Road, is indicated
Correct.
by number 7.
Yes.
Now, in relation to that hazard reduction burn that you mentioned in October 2012, could you indicate by reference to this map for His Honour what was the area that was burned?
Number 4.
All right. And who owns the land indicated in the area around number 4?
Mr. Lowe that I'm aware of.
All right. And further down the photograph, you see there's an area indicated by number 11.
Yes.
Can you tell His Honour who owns that land?
That'd be Mr. Lowe's land as well.
All right, thank you. Now, in relation to that fuel reduction burn in October 2012, you indicated that it had occurred on a day of high winds and you were hopeful that it would be contained within its limits. Can you tell His Honour what happened?
Well, obviously the wind got up very strong. I got a phone call in the afternoon to say that there was smoke in the area, heavy smoke, and I've made my way home and there was a lot of smoke, and then within about 10 minutes of being home, 10 or 15 minutes, a fire truck came through had cut through the fence from Lowe's property onto my property.
Can you indicate on the map roughly where the fence was cut?
Number 9, it'd be north on the boundary of number 9.
All right.
Where the black, I would say around where the black dotted line is.
So where the black...
Yeah, where the cursor is, yeah, to the left, to the left.
How far from your gate is that, Mr. Lyons?
Which gate would that be?
The
Your
one
Honour?
with the solar light on it, the one near where the dog kennel is,
How far from there? It'd be 50 metres.
on the other side.
Yeah, 50 metres to the right as you come up through that gate.
Thank you.
All right. And when the TFS attended, do you recall how many TFS brigades attended that fire?
From memory, it was Dodgers Ferry and Primrose Sands. And then later, there was recruits from Cambridge were brought down as well.
Right. And what ultimately happened in terms of the TFS being able to contain that fire?
They conducted a backburn on my property, in a quadrant of my property, to contain the fire.
And again, by reference to the map and where the cursor sits at the moment to indicate the location where the fence was cut, where was the what was the southern end of the backburned area?
Where the cursor is?
Right. And how far north did the backburning?
North? Well, it continued all the way along, what's that line? 200 metres that it would be, that fence line.
So it continued in a northerly direction along that fence line, is that correct?
Yep. They conducted in a quadrant of from where the cursor is down to Warmsby Creek, which is east of the cursor. Yep, down to there, correct.
All right, thank you. So where the cursor is at the moment, that is at the southeastern corner of the black dotted line. There's a creek there, is there?
Yes, correct.
All right. Now, south of the black dotted line, there appear from the photos to be a number of trees. Could you tell His Honour whether those trees were affected at all by the backburning?
South of that line?
Correct.
No.
All right. And in the aftermath of the TFS attendance at that fire in October 2012, what were your observations as to whether the fire had been contained and extinguished?
There was no, I couldn't see anything. It smoked for that day.
Right.
And I think we had a shower later in the afternoon, towards evening.
Right.
As far as I was concerned, the fire had been extinguished.
Right. And in the period between that fire in October 2012 and the start of January 2013, did you see any signs of fire activity in that area that had been the subject of the October fire?
No, I didn't see any fire at all.
Right, thank you. Now, could I ask you next, please, to turn your mind to the day of the Fawcett Dunalley bushfire on the 3rd of January 2013. Now, at about the middle of the day, around lunchtime, do you recall what you were doing?
Around lunchtime, I would have been still at home. I've been home all day. Our dogs, we just knew they were about 3 months old, I think, so they're only little though. I would have been at home with them. It was hot, getting hotter, and at about 1:45, 2 o'clock, I decided to go up and see a neighbour at 88 Dunalley Road,
Right, and that
Mr. Mayer.
Sorry, that neighbour is Mr. Andrew Mayer.
Yes, correct.
Right? Thank you. Now, could I ask Mr. Temponi, please, to enlarge this map further so that we've got numbers 6, 9 and 11 and 8 taking up a bit more of the court screen. Thank you. Now, just looking at, unfortunately the stars obscure the map a little bit, the photograph a little, Mr. Lawrence, but your house at number 6 faces essentially, the axis of the house runs essentially north to south, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Right.
When you say the axis, do you mean the road or the driveway?
I actually mean the length of the house. The house is a rectangle.
Yes, correct.
Mr.
Yes.
Lawrence. And the long edges of the rectangle run effectively north-south.
Correct.
And therefore the short edges run effectively east-west. Now,
That's right.
when you left your property to go to visit Mr. Mayer, firstly, how did you get across to Mr. Mayer's place?
I drove.
All right. And in order to get from wherever you had been on your property to your car, can you tell His Honour, to the best of your recollection, which direction you walked to get to the car and which areas of your property and the hills around it were visible to you as you got in the car and left your property?
Yep. So I would have come out my back door, which faces west. My ute would have been parked near my garage, in between the garage and the house. Everything was fine, just that it was hot. Jumped in my ute and continued down our driveway up to Dunalley Road to another 100 metres to number 88.
Right, thank you. And if we could now zoom out again a little bit so that we can see number 5 at the bottom of the screen. Number 5 is Mr. Mayer's property, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you. Now, do you recall about how long you were at Mr. Mayer's property before you received a phone call from your father?
Probably only 10 or 15 minutes.
All right, thank you. And you then got a phone call from your father, and could you tell His Honour about that phone call, please?
My father rang me and he said, "Are you up at home?" And I said, "No, I've just gone up to Andy's," which is number 5 there. He said, "There's smoke wafting across your property behind your house."
All right.
And I said to him, "You're joking." And he said, "No, I'm not." And I said, "Well, I'm on my way home. Could you please ring Tas Fire for me?"
All right. And did you then drive back to your place?
Yep, straight away.
And could you tell His Honour, please, what observations you made of either smoke or flames as you drove to your place?
Yep. So as I left Andrews, got to the end of Dunalley Road, which is the start of our driveway, combined driveway for my father's and my property.
And could you indicate on the map where that is, please, Mr. Lawrence?
On the cursor, if you move the cursor to the end of the road, back towards, that's it, just there.
Is that the gate that's propped open?
That's the gate.
This gate opens outwards.
Yep. And I could, from that cursor, I was looking for smoke or any where there was supposedly a fire, and I could see a plume of smoke to my left as I went through the gateway.
All right, thank you. I'll come to that in a second. But could the transcript just show that Mr. Lawrence has indicated that the gate is effectively the southwestern corner of the cleared area to the southwest of Mr. Chris Lawrence's property, which is indicated by number 7. Now, you just referred to seeing smoke drifting, Mr. Lawrence. Could you tell His Honour in a little bit more detail, to the best of your recollection, and by reference to the map, where did you see the smoke drifting from and where was it drifting toward?
The smoke was, I could see a column of smoke coming from around number 2 in that area. Correct? Yes, in that area. And from that column and then drifting through towards my property number 9, it was like a mist, like a light smoke, sort of haze coming through.
Now, from where you were as you drove along first Dunalley Road and then the driveway to your property, Mr. Lawrence, do you have line of sight vision to the property that's indicated up there at number 2?
Line of sight to the property?
As in, can you see it?
From where? I missed that, I'm sorry.
From Dunalley Road or from Mr. Lawrence's driveway?
I can see up through there. I can see up through there, and I can see a column of smoke. So how far up that? You're asking how far up that line I can see?
Well, can I put it this way, Mr. Lawrence? Between Dunalley Road and the driveway to your property and number 2, there's a hill, isn't there?
Yes, correct.
Right, and so my question was, roughly, again, by reference to what we see on the map there, where is the
furthest part I can actually see physically in the bush? probably down towards halfway, probably a third down from the cursor. There must be a ridge. Keep coming down to the east a little bit more. Yep, that'd be about the sort of line of sight you get before it goes up over the ridge, I would say you call it.
Thank you. Again, for the purposes of transcript, Mr. Lawrence has indicated a point with the cursor that's about halfway between the white and red lines indicating fire area and directly up from the right-hand side of the white text box. Now, Mr. Lawrence, from what you could observe as you were driving essentially north along Inala Road and then your driveway, what, if any, observations did you make as to whether there might be a source of fire or smoke in the area on your side of the ridgeline that you've just indicated?
No, I couldn't see anything. Only the thin wafting, which obviously was coming, or I would thought that it was coming from up over the ridge.
All right, thank you. Now, Mr. Lawrence, when you got to your property, I'm sorry, before we do that, could the operator please bring up Court Book 98? And within this bundle of photographs, could we go to photograph 649? Now, Mr. Lawrence, just while this is loading, did you have your mobile phone with you on the day?
Yep, correct.
And you took a number of photos on the phone, is that
Correct.
right? Now, could I ask you to look at the court screen? Are you able to identify that as one of the photos you took?
Yep, sure can.
And could you tell His Honour what it's showing?
Showing, as I said, showing my western boundary where the firewood is, and that is the waft of smoke that I was talking about coming through. Mr. Mayer is in that Photoshop, so he's come up as well to see what was going on.
So you took this once you got back?
Once I got back and I'd been home probably 5 or 10 minutes. I'd cleaned up, put everything away, locked it, shut the house up, the windows and doors, and I was waiting to see what was going to happen.
Now, Your Honour, can I record, and I can show this to you, Your Honour, if it's of assistance, that according to the metadata for this file, this photograph was taken at 2:42 p.m. on the 3rd of January 2013. Now, Mr. Lawrence, when you got back to your property, you just told His Honour that you put things away, cleaned up. We see there that Mr. Mayer was with you. Had Mr. Mayer accompanied you back to your property?
He followed me down probably 5 or 10 minutes after I'd left his house, because he had his kids with him.
And when you got to the property, who else was, when you got back to your property, was there anybody else there?
No, I was there by myself.
All right. Now,
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Armstrong. Is your woodpile then in the same place as it is now, basically?
Correct, yes, you would have seen that the other day.
and just to be clear, Mr. Lawrence, it's against the western boundary of the property, slightly up the rise from the house, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. And I tend to that photograph, please, Your Honour. Now, Mr. Lawrence, in the period while you were there at the property on your own, again, can I ask you whether you saw any signs of a source of fire or smoke on your side of the ridgeline that you indicated earlier?
No, I wasn't aware of anything.
And at that time, what was your impression as to where the smoke was coming from?
Oh, further east, further west, further up the ridge.
Now, eventually some TFS brigades arrived, is that correct?
Correct.
Do you recall about how long after Mr. Mayer arrived that the fire brigades arrived?
If they're not already there, they were only about 5 minutes after him.
Okay. Could we please bring up in the same document image 0647? Now, to help you out, Mr. Lawrence, metadata for this photograph also shows that it was taken at 2:42 p.m, so about the same time as the previous one.
Yep.
Do you recall which fire brigades attended initially?
Initially, Primrose. I think it says Dodgers Ferry on that truck. I think they were the first two.
Can we zoom into the...
and Midway Point.
Right, thank you. Can we zoom into the truck, please, Mr. Temponi? And the door that's open. No, the other truck. Just pause there. So yes, I think we can agree that says Dodgers Ferry, Mr. Lawrence.
Great.
Thank you.
And what did you think the other one was? Primrose?
There was Primrose. Primrose was there, Primrose Sands. They all sort of turned up at the same time. And I can remember Midway Point being there as well.
All right. Now, so this photo was taken at about 2:42 p.m, Mr. Lawrence. Can you recall roughly how long after the fire, during the course of that afternoon, particularly about the middle part of the afternoon, did you ever see flames?
Not till the front hit us. The actual fire came to us.
Okay. And do you recall roughly how long after the fire brigades arrived that the front hit?
It'd be 10 or 15 minutes.
Thank you.
What I can remember, because I think there's a photo we were standing around. Well, the fires were standing around. The course of action, I suppose. What was in their setup to asset protect us, mate.
Right. Could we go back to the photograph index, please, Mr. Temponi? And can we go up the listing, please? Or is that it? Perhaps could we try 650? Thank you. Now, is that the fiery standing around that you referred to a moment ago?
Correct.
Right, thank you. And so I tended that one as well, Your Honour, please. Now, there's a couple of fire trucks there. Mr. Lawrence, you've referred to Midway Point and Dodgers Ferry. And in the photo that we saw a moment ago, there was a third fire service vehicle. Do you recall who was in that third vehicle?
There was a couple of those smaller vehicles turn up. I think Adam Hall might have been, it was amongst them, Gavin Rainbird, Chris Wilson. They're the three that I can mainly remember in those vehicles.
All right, thank you. Now, you said that about 15 minutes after the fire brigade turned up, sorry, I think I heard you say that about 15 minutes after the fire brigade turned up was when you first saw the flames of the fire front?
10 to 15 minutes.
Sorry, Your Honour, thank you. 10 to 15 minutes.
10 to 15 minutes, around that sort of time. It could have been 20 minutes, but it was in that time frame.
Right, thank you. And could we go back, please, to document 138? And could you tell His Honour, by reference to the map, Mr. Lawrence, where you first saw flames during the afternoon of the 3rd of January?
Within 15, 20 metres of the fence line hitting my woodpile, where the woodpile.
Okay.
So the woodpile is on my western boundary.
Right, and could we enlarge the photograph again, please, Mr. Temponi? And, oops, thank you. And by reference to, next to the two black stars beside numbers 6 and 9, Mr. Lawrence, there's what I take to be your workshop or garage, is that right?
Correct.
And the wood pile that is on a saw on Wednesday last week was slightly to the west of that, to the west and north of the workshop, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, when the fire front arrived at your western boundary, could you tell His Honour, to your observation, roughly how wide the fire front was?
Well, it was very heavy smoke. There was a lot of smoke as the front got closer to us. There was a lot of heavy smoke. and I can only see where I was standing near the wood pile or back from it, and you could just see everything started to glow, like come up orange, to a view of that perspective, I suppose. Of
So you had very limited visibility.
Yes, correct.
Oh, thank you. Now, could the operator please bring up, back in the bundle of photographs, document 98, image 657. Now, Mr. Lawrence, I take it that's a photograph of the wood pile on fire?
Correct.
And for the record, that photograph metadata indicates that it was taken at 3:52 p.m. Do you recall how long after the fire hit that part of your property it was before you took the photograph?
Oh, it'd be 40. Yeah, it'd have to be 40 minutes at least.
From when? From the time you arrived back at the property? So.
From the time the fire front hit us.
Right. Okay. I see. So the fire front had gone through.
Fire front had gone through by then. Yep.
The wood heap still burning.
Yeah, that burnt for 5 hours or something, 4 or 5 hours after the front went through, at least.
Again, I'm sorry to jump around a little, Mr. Lawrence. Could we go back to the map at 138, or the aerial photograph, I should say? And as the fire passed to the east of your property, could you indicate to His Honour how it got around your house, which path it followed to get past your house?
Well, it would have spotted, it would have gone down to the north, where it's indicated above number 9, down that track there. Yep, that area there, that's about 50 metres through there. So it tracked down through there up to the rail fence that comes off north of my house.
Right, and is the rail fence the wooden fence that's immediately to the north of your property and at the south edge of that 50-metre stretch?
Correct.
Right, thank you. And the 50-metre stretch you've just referred to, was that I take it that was the same 50-metre stretch that you said was left unburned in the backburning operations in October 2012?
Correct.
Right, thank you. Now,
so we're talking about the very corner of those black lines, right down in that triangle?
Yes, the black lines.
Yeah. Yep. About where the cursor is now, that patch there you're talking about.
Yeah, that's
spotted and gone through there.
Yeah, that's Warnsby Creek. So if you come to your left, bring the cursor back through.
Yeah.
Yeah, it came down that.
Is that pretty much a fence line of yours leading back to that little cattle grid?
Where you went through the fence? Yeah, that's an internal fence that I was going to put up, but one day it might happen.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Now, if Mr. Temponi could please zoom out with the photograph. And after the fire got through that 50-metre strip, Mr. Lawrence, during the rest of the afternoon and evening of Thursday, the 3rd of January, could you tell His Honour, to your observation, where the fire then went?
I continued east over the top of my hill.
Which hill do you mean there?
Number 3, sorry.
So the area indicated by 3 is a hill, is it?
Yes.
And did it go right across the hill or on one side? Or?
It appeared to go right, or as far as I could see, that it had gone all through there.
All right. And could Mr. Temponi then go back to the photographs, please, and bring up, this is document 98, and bring up document 699. Now, could you tell His Honour, please, Mr. Lawrence, what we see in this photograph?
That's the east-facing hill. At the time, later in the evening, the fire burning.
All right. And Mr. Temponi, could we go back to the aerial map again? You just referred to that as the east-facing hill, Mr. Lawrence. Can you indicate on the map roughly which area is shown burning in the
where you got that?
photograph?
Where you've got number 3.
Mm-hmm.
All right, come south from there. Keep coming south. That's about it there.
Thank you. I tend to that previous photograph as well, please.
Yes, thank
Your
you.
Honour.
Now, Mr. Armstrong, what I saw on the view is evidence,
Yes.
of course. And I understand this aerial photograph was taken at about 3 o'clock on the 3rd of January. No. When was this aerial photograph taken?
Oh, this aerial photograph, Your Honour, was taken sometime later. I'll need to check the dates from Mr. Marsden-Smedley's report. It was
Right.
taken, I think, as part of the 2013 Bushfires inquiry investigation. Sorry, if we could scroll right down the image. Yes, I'm told, Your Honour, that the base image indicates that it was taken on the 20th of January 2013.
Right, so not long after. So if you could scroll back up, please, Mr. Timpani, to number 4 and enlarge that area near number 4. I'd just like to make sure that what I saw, which I might treat as evidence, is in fact correct. If I'm understanding you, Mr. Lawrence, the area just above number 9, in that where those black lines are there,
Yes.
was in effect the only area that was burned as the fire front went through, and the rest of that area, the green area, is regrowth from the
Previous fire.
October fire.
Correct.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Well, that's my understanding.
Thank you. And Mr. Timpani, could we go back to the other photographs, please, and bring up 704? And Mr. Lawrence, is that photograph taken from pretty much the same angle as the one that we saw a moment ago?
Correct.
Thank you. I tend to that one as well, please, Your Honour. Now, Mr. Lawrence, could I ask you to turn your mind back to when you first got back to your property and then when the TFS brigades were there? Can you tell His Honour whether during the course of the afternoon you saw Mr. Peter Sutcliffe or a vehicle you know to be...
I saw a vehicle known to be Mr. Sutcliffe's.
Right. And did you see Mr. Sutcliffe himself?
I did not see Mr. Sutcliffe himself.
Where did you see his vehicle?
He was parked at the end of Dunalley Road.
Right. Could we go back to the,
And didn't come
the main
into-
photograph? And when you say the end of Dunalley Road, Mr. Lawrence, I take it you mean the southwestern corner of the cleared area to the southwest of number 7?
Correct.
All right. Did you see Mr. Sutcliffe himself?
No.
During the course, when you were at your property between roughly 2:45 and say 4 o'clock, did you see any persons in the area of in the wooded area to the west of your property, indicated broadly by number 11?
No.
When the fire front hit your property, could you tell His Honour how vigorously that area denoted by number 11 was burning?
It's burning. It's hot. It's a fire. You wouldn't want to be there.
Had there been a lot of undergrowth in that area before the fire swept through?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Nothing further, Your Honour.
Yes, thanks. Mr. Reid.
I don't cross-examine, thank you, Your Honour.
Yes, thanks very much, Mr. Lawrence, then, for your attendance. You're relieved on the trial, which means you're free to go, but you're quite welcome to stay if you want to observe proceedings.
Okay, thank you, Your Honour.
Thank you.
Mr. Cox will take the next witness, Your Honour. He'll be Mr. Hall.
Will you take an oath or choose to make an affirmation?
Oath is fine, thank you.
Do you swear by Almighty God that the evidence you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please say, I swear.
I swear.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Hall, could you please state your full name?
Adam John Hall.
And you're an officer with Tasmania Police?
Correct.
Yep. And back in 2013, you were also Brigade Chief at Dodgers Ferry. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. How long have you been with the Fire Brigade in Dodgers Ferry?
Since 1997.
Yeah. You still with them?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, taking you back to the 3rd of January that year, you received a pager to respond?
Correct.
And where were you when you received that?
I was at Cambridge at the time.
And do you recall when that was approximately?
At the time of the pager message?
Yes.
A bit after 2 p.m.
Okay, and what did you do as a result of that page?
Got in my vehicle and started travelling towards Fawcett.
Okay, did you meet up with anyone before you got to Fawcett?
No, I didn't stop between where I was and Fawcett.
Okay, but you went on to the Dodgers Ferry station, didn't you? You met up with Beth Foster?
No, whilst on my way to Fawcett, I made a phone call to the fire station, and Beth Foster was there by herself. The first truck had already left, so I asked Beth to grab my gear from my hook, and she drove the light tanker to Fawcett, where I met her and got on that vehicle with her.
Okay. And did you make any observations then or after then of smoke in the area?
Yeah, so from where I was working at Cambridge, the area was fairly elevated, and I could see across the airport, across the pit water towards Fawcett, and from the time the pager went off, I could see the smoke in the area of White Hills Road at Fawcett.
Okay. And were you dispatched to Inala Road or White Hills Road?
Well, the pager message was for White Hills Road, but I responded to Inala Road.
Okay. And so you and Beth Foster travelled to Inala Road, yes?
Correct.
Yep. And on getting into Inala Road, and perhaps I might bring up 138, please, Mr. Temponi. Show you this aerial photograph. Just give you a chance to familiarise yourself. It might need to be enlarged in the top half. You'll see there, just to get your bearings, Mr. Hall, that's Inala Road running to the north into these various numbered points. And if I could perhaps assist you by telling you that number 6, for example, is 112 Inala Road, the property of Darren Lawrence. Does that assist you?
Yes.
Get your bearings?
Yes.
Yep. Can I ask you then, firstly, as you were driving in towards Mr. Lawrence's property, what observations did you make of smoke in the area?
My recollection was that the smoke was to the northwest of that property.
Okay, perhaps if we could use the cursor just to assist. There's the cursor there, if you could perhaps direct where that all goes to where you were seeing smoke.
Yeah, so the smoke was sort of crossing west to east in that direction, somewhere around about where the cursor was. I recall I was only in Inala Road for a very short time, but my recollection was that whilst I was at that house at the end, there was no smoke blowing through my location.
Okay, and any observations of fire while you were
No,
there?
no flame at all whilst I was at Dunalley Road.
Now, I gather you say you were only there for a moment. You were making an assessment of the area?
Yes, that's correct.
Yep. And then you were to report, presumably, on that assessment?
Yes, so I provided some feedback back to Firecom in relation to my observations there.
Okay. Mr. Temponi, could please bring up document 74. Sorry, not 74, the incident log that we've been referring to. Sorry, 75. Right. No, I've got it now, thanks, mate. Now, you recognise that document as the incident log?
I do, yes.
Yep. Okay, if we just scroll down to entry at 2 or 1449. You recognise, look, just stop there. See that entry there, 3rd of January, 1449-49, Hall A. That's your...
That's my word back to Firecom, yes.
Okay, perhaps
Sorry, what's that?
That's my word back, so that's the information I've provided back to the fire service from my observations or where I was at the time.
Okay, 1449-49.
Perhaps you could just explain to His Honour what is set out in that entry and what you in fact reported back.
Okay, so it starts off BC Hall mobile only, no radio contact, and at the time of responding from Fawcett to the incident, the radio in the fire vehicle that I was in was not working, so initial communication from me was by mobile phone. So I informed Firecom that I arrived at the end of Dunalley Road conducting structural protection. The DF31, that's Dodgers Ferry's heavy tanker, so that was there with me as well. Dodgers Ferry 51 going down Gangels Road to establish a cut-off point for this fire. There are quite a few tracks in here, so I was familiar with the area. Although I said Dodgers Ferry 51 was going to go to Gangels Road, after the information I provided back to Firecom, I changed my plan and an additional four-wheel drive turned up to Dunalley Road and I took that vehicle instead, which as call sign was Sorrel Group 71.
And
so you arrived in a truck and left in a Land Cruiser?
I arrived in a Land Cruiser, which was
right.
a purpose-built firefighting appliance,
yep.
And I left in a Hilux, which is like a dual cab troop carrier, I suppose.
Yeah.
And your intent at that point was to move further east to Gandrels Road?
Correct.
Yeah. Just at that point in time, and before you left, what observations of fire, if any, did you make then in the area?
In the area in general?
In general.
No flame, but there was obviously the smoke coming from west to east to the northwest of my location on Dunalley Road, and I could also see further east from the end of Dunalley Road smoke starting up in some of the hills there, which appeared or identified as spot fires starting from the fire front west of Dunalley Road.
Can you help us with that and take you back to the aerial photo on 138? So as I understand what you're saying is you didn't see any fire to the north, or let's reference number 11, to the north or in that area or to the north, but you were seeing what you thought was spot fires and smoke, or smoke indicating spot fires in what area?
Probably it's a little bit hard to tell from that aerial photo, but I think maybe a little bit south perhaps of number 3.
Okay. And did you see flame or was it smoke?
No, it was just smoke starting.
Right. And your suspicion was that they were spot fires?
Yeah, it was. So the smoke coming from the fire to the west, you could see that it was high and it was going over those hills, whereas the smoke that I could see around the area of number 3 here was actually, it was starting low. It was in the vegetation, in the bush.
Okay. When you talk about the hills, can you just give us an idea of where you thought the fire was by reference to the hills that were obscuring your view of it?
The spot fires.
The fire.
The fire. Sorry, I don't quite understand your question.
Well, you weren't seeing any fire from where you were around 249, but you were saying you were seeing smoke coming west to east from behind the hills.
Yes.
And you were seeing further smoke further to the east, presumably from spot fires. Where, in your estimated opinion, was the main fire before you left?
I believe it was northwest of point 11, sort of over in that direction. Perhaps if the cursor can go a little bit more to the northwest and north from there. Perhaps somewhere in there was my initial thought that was where the main fire front was.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because the smoke was blowing from west to east, and it was north of Darren Lawrence's property.
And your understanding, I think it's agreed between all here, there's a ridge between Darren Lawrence's property and up onto White Hills Road.
That's correct.
Yep. Just one last question. Did you see Kevin Daly at Dunalley Road when you were in attendance at Darren Lawrence's property?
No, not that I recall. From my recollection, it was only myself and Beth Foster, which was in the light tanker, and the Dodgers Ferry heavy tanker crew, which turned up, and then the Sorrel Group officer, who's Gavin Rainbird at the time. I don't recall any Dunalley officers there at Dunalley Road.
Nothing further. Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Thanks. Mr. Reid.
Yes, the point where the curtain, Mr. Tempone just beat me to it. You gave evidence that you believe the fire was northwest of 11, and we put the cursor there. Can you direct Mr. Tempone to take the cursor back to where you had it, please, Mr. Hall?
I can. So somewhere in that direction where he has the cursor now, but that's an estimate.
Yes. Can we have a screenshot of that, please? No, don't move the cursor.
No.
There, that's all right. Has that been screenshotted?
He's going to have to move the cursor to screenshot it.
Right. Well, then what we may need to do then is to print that and give it to the witness, I think. That might be the way we preserve that.
I think we have a clean copy of that map, which I can provide to
I'm indebted.
tip staff.
Thank you.
We can work out another way, Mr. Tempone, to screenshot, I think, can't we, without moving the cursor? Mr. Tempone? For future reference. Anyway, have a think about it. The other thing you might have a think about is whether we're always going to be caught with the crosshairs when we're using the cursor on an image, or whether we can make it something more distinctive.
Yes, it could possibly be changed to a pointer.
Anyway, are you going to be long, Mr. Reid?
I'll be about 10 or 15 minutes.
All right, well then we might take the break now and see if those arrangements can be made.
Yes.
All right, well I'll take the morning break.
All stand, please.